Okay, let's set the scene. The year is 2026. It's January. And behind closed doors, a super high-stakes negotiation is unfolding between two of the world's most powerful rivals. Now, on the surface, it's all about peace. But the data? Well, the data tells a completely different story.
So this is the central puzzle, right? Why on earth, after years of really intense conflict, would these two leaders even think about sitting at the same table? The analysis we're digging into reveals the answer isn't some newfound desire for peace. No, it's something way more primal.
And this brings us to what the analysis calls the cold transaction. You have to understand, this isn't a peace plan built on trust or, shared values. It's a deal born from two very different, very hidden, and very desperate weaknesses. To get it, we really need to understand the players and what's pushing them to this table in the first place.
So first up, we have player one, Donald Trump. He's 1 year into his new term. And beneath what looks like a surface of absolute strength, there's this deep, hidden vulnerability that's driving his every single move.
I mean, you just look at the numbers, and on the surface, he looks incredibly strong. His political power is high, it's consolidating, and his financial control is peaking. By all outward appearances, this guy is in a completely untouchable position.
To put it plainly, it looks like he's weathered all the political storms and has a really firm grip on the country's economic levers. So from the outside, you would say, this is a leader negotiating from a position of absolute strength, right?
Well, this is where the story takes a really sharp turn, because the data reveals a critical weakness, a hidden cost to all this power that's pushing him right to the brink. So what is it?
It comes down to this one number, 112.9. This is his impression risk score, and as the analysis shows, it's just skyrocketing, telling the real story behind that facade of power.
So what on earth is impression risk? Well, think of it as a measure of a leader's psychological state, their mental endurance, and their public reputation. And a score over 110, that doesn't just mean stress. It signifies extreme anxiety. The pressure from a divided nation has become so intense, it's creating a personal crisis for him.
The analysis really paints a stark picture. You have this political giant who has crushed his opponents, he's secured his power, but personally, he's on the verge of a mental collapse. He desperately needs a win, a big public win, to fix his reputation and relieve this immense psychological pressure.
Okay, so now let's go to the other side of the table. Player 2, Vladimir Putin. His crisis isn't psychological, but believe me, it is just as existential. He is staring right down a financial cliff. And here's where it gets interesting. Where Trump is emotionally volatile, Putin is the complete opposite. You can see it right here. His strategic intelligence is at a peak, while Trump's is described as damaged. He's shown to be operating with total strategic calm, a huge contrast to his counterpart, whose decision-making is way more emotional and reactive.
The analysis portrays him as a precise hunter. He's not making impulsive moves. No, he's playing the long game, using his opponent's emotional state against him. He is the cool, calculating player at this geopolitical poker table. But, and this is the key, just like Trump, this outward strength is masking a catastrophic vulnerability. So what's the fatal flaw hiding underneath that calm, strategic exterior?
And there it is, an even more alarming number. 136.39. This is Putin's financial risk score. It's a measure of his country's economic stability. And wow, it is flashing bright red.
So what does this number actually mean? Well, a score of 130 means an economy is entering the systemic collapse range. Okay, we're not talking about a recession here. We're talking about the potential for bank failures, supply chains breaking down, a literal physical failure of the economic structure. His entire regime is on the brink. So now we bring these two players, with their two competing desperations, right to the table. This is the collision. It's an asymmetrical duel where each man holds the key to the other's survival. And here's the heart of the duel, laid out plain and simple. You've got Trump, whose core weakness is psychological. He needs a great deal to fix his crippling 112.9 impression risk. And then you have Putin, whose weakness is economic. He needs financial relief to pull back from a terrifying 136.39 financial risk. It's that simple. One needs fame, the other needs funds. And this timeline just shows you how the dynamic shifts. Early in the month, Putin is totally leveraging Trump's eagerness for a deal. But as his own financial crisis gets worse and worse, the pressure shifts. By the end of January, his financial system is at its breaking point.
Time's up. He is forced to make a major concession just to survive.
So, what's the final outcome of this high-stakes showdown? You've got a man on the verge of mental collapse and another on the verge of economic collapse. What could that deal possibly look like?
Well, the analysis uses this powerful metaphor to describe it: a fragile ice surface agreement. You know, it looks solid from a distance, but in reality, it is incredibly thin, incredibly dangerous, and it could crack at any second.
It's what the source material calls a survival exchange. It's this purely transactional arrangement where both leaders trade their greatest strength to patch over their most critical weakness. There is absolutely no trust here, just the mutual, desperate need to stop the bleeding on both sides.
And at the end of the day, this is what each player walks away with. Trump gets the headlines, the fame, and that appearance of geopolitical stability he needs to bring down his dangerously high impression risk score. And Putin? He gets the cash flow, the liquidity he needs to pull his economy back from the edge of the cliff. It is a straight trade, reputation for survival.
But this leaves us with a final and honestly a chilling question. This whole deal is designed to relieve both crises at the same time. But what happens if it doesn't? What happens when one player gets exactly what they need, but the other's fundamental problem is still there? Well, that's when the ice cracks, and this dangerous game enters its next, totally unpredictable phase.